Good morning, everyone. I do hope you're all safe and sound. Welcome to Ask the Expert, a daily series from 8:30 to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. Ask any questions in the comments or use the hashtag QBATE, that's QBATE on Twitter to get your questions over to us. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7, including myself. QuickBooks are also QuickBooks also have a dedicated COVID-19 information site. Just go to the QuickBooks website, scroll down a little bit, and click on the big Learn More button under the header Support for you and your business during COVID-19. My name is Aaron Patrick, a chartered accountant, certified UK trainer. So don't be afraid to ask me any QuickBooks related questions. I own a state of the art accounting firm called Boffix, which uses the best in cloud technology available to help small business just like yourself get the crucial real time information they need at their fingertips. If you require any accountancy advice, payroll, bookkeeping services, then please do get in touch. Okay, enough about me and let's focus on today's session. So in this session, it's all about your burning questions. So get them over to us using the social channels, as I mentioned before, or the hashtag QBATE on Twitter, and then we can see exactly what questions you've got and answer them accordingly. So while we wait for the first of the questions to arrive, let's talk about some recent issues, and especially what our clients are facing and how the big announcement on Friday will affect them. So firstly, Judith did a fantastic job on Monday explaining this, but I thought for anyone who's missed on Monday's session, I'll do a quick recap for you all, just so we're all up to speed in exactly what's happened. So, some big changes to the job retention scheme. During June and July 2020, the scheme will remain as before, so no change from the 80% salary for employees. However, from the 1st of July, the government have now introduced the concept flexible furlough, which basically means it's going to give you the opportunity to bring a person in and then have them stay there as well, and stay on furlough as well. There's one big date to remember, though, June the 10th. You must make sure that your staff that you're looking to put on furlough are already in the scheme before that date, or at least put onto the furlough scheme, because there's no more entrants to be permitted after the 30th, and that gives you time for that date rule. From the 1st of August, the government/taxpayer will continue to pick up the 80% tab of furlough days, but employers will need to pick up the national insurance and pension contributions. So make sure you update your cash flows accordingly, because you're going to have a bit more extra expense coming your way. From the 1st of September, the government taxpayer will cover the 70% of salary, and employers will be required to contribute 10% of that figure. So you're going to have to contribute a little bit more at that point. So again, keep your cash flows up to date, keep your budgets up to date, and get ready for that. But your employees will still get the full 80%. And from the 1st of October, the contribution will reduce further to 60% of the salary, up to a cap of 1,875, and employees will contribute 20% to make up that difference. So again, keep those cash flows up to date, get some budgets in place. If you are still having to furlough your staff at that point, then now's the time to make sure you're prepared for it and that you've got everything in place ready to go. Self-employed income support scheme. Good news is it's been extended. There was a little bit of worry that it might have been reduced at that point, but no, fingers crossed. Thankfully, it's been extended to August. But the grant itself has been reduced in line with the job retention scheme. So same dates and rates as above to keep it fair on both schemes. Also, big public service announcement reminder, it's still possible to apply for the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme's first grant. The deadline for applicants under the first scheme has been confirmed as the 13th of July. However, you do not need to have claimed the first grant to be eligible for the second grant that's going to be coming our way. Secondly, I thought it would be a really useful time to explain how, as an accountancy firm, we have fully adopted the quote new normal. So I thought it'd be a really good time to give you kind of a lowdown of how, prior to lockdown, us as an accountancy firm consider ourselves an online firm. And by the definition, that's exactly what we was. We were an online accountancy firm. But it wasn't until we were forced away from our physical offices and due to lockdown that we learned exactly what it means to be a truly online firm. Now, with that, for us to make sure that lockdown didn't adversely affect our services, we needed to adapt quickly and to learn as a virtual office. Although we have an opportunity to return to work in some circumstances, you yourself may find that because your team is being split, you're going to have even more challenges ahead of you in terms of managing a remote team and keeping a remote team happy and everything else. So, with that in mind, I thought it might be a really good opportunity to give you some pro tips on how to manage a virtual team, how we've adapted and how we've come across and made ourselves a truly online presence. One of the most things, and one of the things to think about from a challenge of virtual office work is about making sure that your staff feel connected. So we use Microsoft Teams for both instant messaging, video calls, and updates. But there's lots of technology out there, Zoom, Slack, there's loads of ways in which to do it. And I'm sure we've all adopted it one way or another, and we're all utilizing it in one way in which we can actually get the most out of it. But just remember, though, it doesn't matter what tech you're using, you need to adopt and start to make it part of the firm's culture. And that's going to come from yourself in terms of pushing it out to your staff. So you need to kind of be thinking about the way you're using it. And this is what the tips I've got for you. So first of all, don't be afraid to use video calling as a way to replace quick questions and problem-solving chats. Lead by example. If you find yourself going back and forth by emails, or Teams, and then why don't you think about jumping into a call to explain yourself? So if you've got this email chain that just keeps going and going and going, and there's a particular client, a particular employee who's struggling to grasp exactly what you're going on about, then don't be afraid to pick up the call, actually have a one-to-one conversation with them. You'll find it's much more engaging. You're going to be able to get that situation sorted a lot quicker, and you also might find some extra training points that you can develop. One thing we've lost from being virtual is that ability to quickly be able to train someone and quickly be able to understand how it's going. Set a good routine to a day. So when you've got this new virtual world, make sure you've still got your routines in place. For example, we always start every day with an all hands call. With that, encourages everyone to explain what their day looks like, gets people talking. It makes it easier for management to understand the workload. So make sure there is some sort of routine. Still encourage dinner time and make sure, maybe even encourage dinner time for them to actually talk to one another virtually and everything else. Make time for informal chats in your meeting schedule. Your team is having to adapt at a rapid pace. What we've learned is you need to give them an opportunity to talk about something non-work related as well. Look out for one another. So this isn't just for the people owning the business, but everyone. You're all in the same situation, but not necessarily in the same boat. Everyone has different circumstances and working conditions. A quick "how are you doing" really goes a long way in these sort of situations. And then think about some team building activities virtually. I'm sure we've all had a go at it, but think about widening that net. Think about quizzes, games. I know some situations where people are having cocktail parties. We were sent a cocktail making kit in the post, and then we all did it in our own homes. And it's a really nice, safe way to make sure your team feels bonded. Finally, don't be afraid of trial and error. We certainly haven't perfected our setup at Bofix, but we are much more comfortable than we have been in a long time. And we know no matter what gets thrown at us, we're going to be able to adapt. We're going to be able to pivot. We're going to be able to be available to change in any capacity we need to, because we made sure that we set the right precedent and we made sure we got everything right when we did it the first time round. So with that out of the way, then let's go on to your burning questions. Question number 1, James from the YouTube live feed says, with the flexible furlough scheme, how much work is deemed eligible for the scheme? So this is a really, really good question there by James. And what it's basically referring to is the fact of, you've got to remember what a furloughed employee or furloughed director actually means. And what that means is that person or that individual, their job is at risk. Therefore, they're not allowed to work under your work for you on a commercial basis in terms of being able to be eligible for the grant coming in. Now, that does cause complications, especially if you take it into a context of a director versus a normal employee. If there is a situation like that where you're a director of a firm, then it gets really murky in terms of how much work you're allowed to do on a non-commercial basis before you become ineligible to be able to make the grant itself. But the rule of thumb is basically, you as a director, you're going to have certain responsibilities anyway. You've got to make sure that your business is being still looked after in terms of bookkeeping and filing requirements. You're going to have to make sure HR and everything else is still up to date. So you're still going to have a hands-on with the business. You're still not going to be able to walk away with it and completely and utterly class yourself as a furloughed employee. But at the same time, you've just got to be careful that you don't start doing commercial work on the same time. So that's basically being paid for something going forward. And then for your employees, it's really straightforward. They're not allowed to do any commercial work for you whatsoever, but do take this opportunity to do training for them, or ask them to do some training, or put them on training courses. Them sort of things is going to be allowed. So hopefully that helps you there, James. Noel from Facebook Messenger. We already applied to the self-employed scheme and we're pleased to see it's been extended. How does the self-employed scheme get calculated? Really great question there from Noel. So the good news is, from your point of view as an individual who needs to put the claim in, and as you've already done, you've put your first claim in, so you're looking at making that second claim, you'll notice that you didn't have to actually go through and put any calculations in yourself. So one of the good things is unlike some of the other schemes available, your scheme or your calculation is automated completely by HMRC. So there's no need to go into a calculator and try and figure it out and try and put all the figures in. Your calculation is automatically done for you. And that's a really, really positive thing. Now, the way it's calculated is quite straightforward. It's based on your previous self-employment income. So it's going to be based on what you've put on a tax return. And then basically they find an averaging of that. And then they very, very similar to how the job retention scheme is. But the most important thing is, because you don't need to do any calculations, all you need to do is apply for the scheme, and then you'll find that that scheme has already been calculated for you. You've just got to tell HMRC where it needs to be paid. And then, as we've seen previously, that scheme works really, really well. Do remember, though, I did say anyone who hasn't claimed that scheme so far, do remember you've got until the 13th of July to get that claim in. Cigar from Facebook live feed. Hello, Cigar. Hi, Aaron. I was wondering if you have tried to connect AFX to QuickBooks Online. AFX is like a Forex banks used a lot by travel agency. Yes, I completely understand. I have a couple of travel agency type clients and they have a similar sort of issues. Now, the reason that we've had some difficulties at the moment in terms of connecting banks and everything else is a brand new regulation called open banking. And what open banking in real simple terms is all about is going the way that QuickBooks and all the other bookkeeping solutions was connecting banks. They were all using their own methods. So open banking said, right, let's get one way in which everyone connects to bank accounts, and one way where we can be all regulated. Now, that's a really positive step. It means that there's no security issues or anything like that. But unfortunately, that has meant there's been some teething problems along the way. So with those teething problems, it means that certain connections that used to work, now that open banking has come along, don't quite work as intended at this moment in time. But don't be afraid, because QuickBooks are working around the clock to try and make as many connections as they can go forward. And when it is finally connected for you, you're going to find that it's a better experience than what you may have previously had under the non-open banking solution. That being said, if you are having difficulties now, do remember that you can still manually upload those transactions. So just go into your AFX account, download the transactions as they are as a CSV format, and then upload them back into QuickBooks for now. I know it's a little bit of a pain and it's a little bit of an issue, but it's going to be far quicker for you to do that one simple step of downloading, uploading, than trying to manually recreate that bank account or credit card statement. So for now, let's just use the download, upload options. Maybe put it in the feedback to QuickBooks, because there is an option there when you're looking for bank accounts to say, is there one missing? And that will just prompt them that little bit more to try and get that open banking connected for you. Also, to note on that, it's not always QuickBooks that's the issue. Sometimes it's the bank itself. So maybe a nice little email to the bank telling them how much you appreciated that connection and how much that was working for you can go a long way. Kirsty from the YouTube live feed. Hi, Kirsty. This is the first time I need to do a self-assessment. Do I need an accountant to file it? Is there any help from the government with the payment I may need to make? Fantastic question there, Kirsty. And I think there's a lot of people kind of coming up to their first opportunity to do a tax return. We've just passed a tax year, so we're kind of going into that situation where people are having to consider their first tax return. First and foremost, you do not need an accountant whatsoever to do a tax return. It is a self-assessment, so you do have in kind of the clues in the name where it is about you putting a self-assessment together, so you can do it yourself. One thing I would though do is just reach out to some form of professional, just to make sure that you are doing it in the correct manner. It can be really complicated in terms of what period you need to account for, and what expenses are allowable and not allowable. So a nice reach out. The community is there for you if you do need to help there, and there'll always be someone to thing. And also in QuickBooks itself, it gives you the opportunity to reach out to an accountant, not necessarily to take them on for full-blown accounting services, but just to ask a question. That's always going to be useful. Another thing, if you aren't looking, or you are looking to do it yourself, do consider QuickBooks Self-Employed. It has the feature to file that tax return directly within the software itself. So that could be a quite useful feature for you and can make your life easier. But if you do want to don't want to have that hassle of it, then do consider just passing it over to an accountant. People like ourselves, we make sure we put that cost as low as we possibly can for you to make it as easy as possible. From £10 a month, you can file a tax return for you. So consider it, think about your options, think about what's kind of more valuable to you, and then put it from there. And with the payment and you need to make, there are opportunities for deferment, but all you need to do is talk to HMRC. So HMRC have been really, really good at the moment in terms of understanding everyone's situation, understanding what people are going through. So if you do have a communication with them, then that's going to be useful. One thing to note though is if it's your first actual self-assessment this particular time, then you don't have to worry about that July payment schedule that people may be talking about, that you may have heard people having to make. If it's your first one, you're exempt, if you like, from that July payment. Your first one's going to be 31st of January 2021. So hopefully that gives you enough time to prepare for it and get yourself ready to pay it. There's Christina from Facebook live feed. Hello, Christina. Hi, Aaron. Great to see you on this platform again. I'm coming up to week 11 of working from home from my full-time employment. Are there any reliefs I can claim for extra costs I've incurred having my office at home, e.g. increase in rates? And how would I go about doing this? Great question there, Christina. So basically what this is all related to is HMRC do have some guidance on their website from working from home. They class it as use of home, and it's basically an allowance to make sure that you as an employee doesn't feel like you're being out of pocket for the fact that you're working in your home premises. Now, if you do go on Google, they'll go through and it'll show you all the different rates. They change year on year. So it is best to just make sure that you get the most up-to-date rates and make sure you're happy with it. And way for claiming it is there's two ways. First of all, if you're already doing a tax return, then you could put it as an allowable expense on that tax return, no problem whatsoever. But if not, if you just Google for HMRC and you actually look into the fact of claiming an expense as an employee, there's actually a really simple form that you can complete there. It's the same one used if you've ever had to go for extra mileage or anything like that. It's the same form there, and you can put the information directly on that form. So hopefully that helps you. Hopefully you can get that claim in, and then hopefully you'll get a nice tax relief because of it. Jasmine from Facebook Messenger. Hi, Aaron. Our small business is providing entertainment acts at events like weddings. So we're very eager to get out there again. From your experience and conversations you have had with your clients, do you foresee any opportunity areas for small businesses for when the nation start to get back to work again? Yeah, I think that's exactly it, especially things like weddings. I know myself how planning for a wedding and everything else can be really, really stressful. And when you've got something like this in terms of something so demanding on everyone, where everyone's having to think about it, everyone's having to understand exactly what's going on, and everyone's having to change the way in which they're planning things, or even worse, there's people who had weddings and everything that was planned for this particular area, now they're having to defer it. Means that competition wise and everything else means that there's going to be a lot more demand for those sort of services. So I think for a small business like yourself, you're going to find that there's going to be, as soon as we're out of lockdown, there's going to be a lot more uptake, hopefully. And as long as you can market for that, as long as you can get yourself into the right areas, so buddy up with other wedding venues, I'm sure you're already doing, then you can make sure that you've got a lot more work coming in for you going forward. That being said, one of the considerations I am talking to clients about is about being careful about when they plan to go back to work. We're in a really difficult time where we're starting to get to that point where we're hopefully, fingers crossed and touching all the wood out there, that we'll we're past the worst of it, and we're starting to slowly but surely starting to get back to some form of normality. Now, the most difficult part of that is about making sure from a time point of view that you are prepared to be able to make that jump and be able to get there. One thing as a small business you can't afford to do is just one day just click your fingers and just jump 100 miles an hour back to where you were before. You're going to have a staged approach. You're going to have to build those things back up and try and go from there. So my advice to any small business out there who are looking to return back to the real world and return back to everything else is just consider it. You're going to have a different approach. Safety wise is going to be paramount. So you're going to have to make sure that you've got enough time to do the work that you used to be able to do, because there's going to be extra time involved in making sure that you're safe and that you're socially distant and that you're making sure that you've got your hands sanitized, and everything else is going to add to extra time. So a job that may have taken half an hour before can easily take an hour now. So you've got to budget for that. You've got to make sure that you're prepared to take on those extra time restraints that are going to come your way. So take the time to really plan out, create yourself a plan of how you're going to stage yourself back into how you were before, and do it as steps. Make sure you don't just jump into it head first, and you'll be absolutely fine. QuickBooks can help you with that. We've got cash flow planner now that's going to help you plan for that going forward. So, use the tools available, try as best we can to try and minimize the damage that could happen if you quickly just went in and just went headfirst back into where you were before, because you could find yourself financially and also, mentally and everything else, you could find yourself drained in terms of resourcing basically a work that was before could have taken a lot longer. Andrew from the Facebook Live, hopefully that works out for you though, Jasmine. Hopefully you've got the opportunity. So Andrew from Facebook Live feed, just moving to QuickBooks, can you recommend a good guide text? It's not obvious to me, a non-accountant, how to record daily take-ins from my point of sales. Well, first and foremost, from your point of sales, do consider or have a look and see if there's an opportunity for you to connect the point of sales directly to QuickBooks. So depending on what service you're using, there's loads out there. But if you go to www.apps.com, there's a whole app store dedicated to QuickBooks itself. And on there are a lot of connections to point of sale solutions. So it could be a simple case of you activating one of those connections. And then every time you go and sell a car or do a haircut or whatever it is your business does, then it will automatically feed directly into QuickBooks itself. That would be my first point of call. That make your life so much easier. But if it comes to recommendations and good text and everything else, YouTube's a really good place for content. I myself have a few YouTube videos on that particular subject. But if you can't, do remember to ask us in the local communities and the Facebook groups as well. There's loads of experts on hand. We're designed to kind of help these sort of situations out. And to be fair, they're the sort of situations we love the most. A bit of a problem solving for us, so we can kind of get our teeth into and help you along the way. So reach out to people, have a look on YouTube, see some good advice and everything else, or consider from the training point of view, we do a small business webinar as well. So it's a webinar designed to give you some training in terms of how to use QuickBooks. So have a look on the QuickBooks website. We'll be able to give you a hand there in terms of training. Nathan from YouTube live feed says, has the government given any further clarity whether they are going to give support to limited companies who pay themselves through dividends? Great question there, Nathan. And unfortunately not. That was one of the things that we as a profession was hoping there'll be some sort of more news on, some sort of more kind of guidance on, but unfortunately that's not been the case. Now, it is one of those things where we've just got to accept the situation that we're in. We've got to look at other alternatives. So from an other alternatives point of view, do make sure you consider the job retention scheme for your director salary. Now, more than likely, you would have had a reduced director salary. So we wouldn't be expecting to have a job retention scheme that's going to be like for like what your dividends plus salary was going to be, but at least you'll be getting something out of that. And then consider universal credit as well. So universal credit system has been designed to be more open nowadays during this pandemic. And it's given you an opportunity to go in there and be able to hopefully apply, hopefully be able to get some more to more information and to hopefully give you a chance to get a claim in that's going to be available to you and be able to be worthwhile. Now, the other thing to consider is just things like the bounce back loan. A really, really good system out there. It's helped a lot of our clients out, to be honest. And it could be one of those things where, okay, you're not getting a grant in, but it could just keep you going for now. And then we can start talking about recovery later down the line. And that's kind of been our experience with our clients now. It's about just plugging in those gaps, making sure the ship doesn't sink, for want of a better word. And then hopefully, as long as that ship's still sailing, we can then start figuring out how we're going to get through it and how we're going to get through it on the other side, and hopefully back to where we were before. Also, consideration to deferments of taxes as well. That's a nice short-term gain in terms of being able to keep yourself afloat. If you have got high dividends, you may be looking at a 31st July tax bill. So consider deferring that tax bill. And then again, that's a bit of cash that you would normally have had to keep to one side that you can start thinking about maybe utilizing now and maybe saving up for later down the line. But again, especially for limited companies, this is all going to be about the most important thing for you to do is consider the fact that your cash flow is going to be so critical to you. So have good budgets in place. Look at cash flow solutions. The QuickBooks one is a really good starting place. Maybe you need something a little bit more advanced, but it could be a good starting place. But try and make sure you've got systems in place so that you can make sure that you can keep the costs going and keep the costs under control. Great question there, Nathan. Chantel from Facebook live feed. Hi, I've just downloaded QuickBooks. I'm a mobile hairdresser. Fantastic. Good on you. Obviously not working at the moment. Is there a full guide explaining each thing in the app and how to use it? I'm not most tech savvy. Well, first of all, you've made the right choice in terms of software, in my opinion. I think that's really the perfect solution out there for someone who's first time using a bookkeeping solution. It's really been designed to be really simple to use. Now, you haven't said there which version of QuickBooks, so if it's QuickBooks or QuickBooks Self-Employed. Either way, though, both solutions are really, really, really simple. One thing, again, I would promote to kind of look at, there is the Facebook group where you can ask some simple questions, and we'll be able to, experts on hand to give you some simple answers on there. And also we can direct you to YouTube videos and things like that. So again, people like myself, I know some of the other asset experts who've been on as well, we do videos based on exactly this sort of thing. So it's all about giving you an opportunity to see how to use it, what to do in the circumstances. So have a look on YouTube, just put QuickBooks in there and you'll have some really good answers there. And most of the time it's a walkthrough, so you can see on screen what they're doing. It works really, really well. So yeah, good luck with it. Hopefully it goes well for you. First and foremost, get that bank account connected. That's going to make your life easier. And then start playing around with it. So start taking photos of things, and you'll see that when you take a photo of an expense, for example, a receipt, it's going to read that for you and everything else. So just play around with it. That's always the best thing to do, especially in these times when you've got that time to kind of think how it works. And yeah, from there, then have a look on YouTube, have a look on the Facebook group, and I promise you, you'll find it really easy. So fantastic. So we're coming up to our last question now. Colin from Twitter DM. Hello, Aaron. I have a small business in construction and we want to make sure that our cash flow is correct for the future. How can we tell the data used to project our cash flow is accurate? Great question there, Colin. In a real simple one to look at is you've just got to make sure your endpoint is absolutely spot on. So reconcile everything as of today. Make sure all the information as of today is correct. And then for the cash flow planner going forward, it's then going to make sure that predictions are there. We're still figuring out ourselves exactly how the cash flow planner works in terms of what information it's taken in. But the most important thing is making sure today's information is correct. If today's information is correct and complete, going forward, it's going to be able to make sure it's all correct. And that's it. That's half an hour flown by. So thank you, everyone, for your involvement. And thank you, Intuit QuickBooks, one more time for letting me come here and talk to you today. So any questions, get in touch with QB support team on Facebook, and Boffix and myself on the website itself, or hello@boffix.com. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Helen McGivery, a behavior therapist and founder of Compass Therapy Limited. Helen has recently been appointed a clinical lead with OK Positive. a proactive app to make mental health matter in the workplace. If anything, if you remember from her last Ask the Expert, the first 10 minutes alone will be worthwhile. She's got, if she does it again, she's got a really good way in which to get you ready for the day. A reminder that if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. And finally, thank you from myself. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.